Welcome to r/slash Prorevenge, where OP gets a cheater arrested. This story happened approximately 4 years ago to a friend of mine. He and his wife, girlfriend back then, took a house loan, bought a new Chevrolet Camaro, and in general, they were preparing for a life together. He had proposed to her. Because of their lack of free time due to their hard work to pay off the loan, they didn't have time for themselves, nor for the abnormal amount of other things such as the housework. So they hired a maid. His first impressions of her were good, and they decided that she's the person they'll trust, so they handed her their house keys, because they were at work most of the time she came around to clean their house. For the first few weeks, she worked hard and always paid attention to detail, and nicely cleaned their house from the bottom to the very top. She was also instructed not to let anyone in and to always lock the door when she left. After 6 months of her working there, strange things began to happen. Not in an anomalous way, but things started to disappear, being stolen. It all started with small things, like AA batteries, which are barely noticeable missing. But soon, things graduated as phone chargers, perfumes, the more expensive ones, and some electrical gadgets went missing. My friend thought that he simply lost them, but soon the maid became suspicious as the things started going missing when my friend wasn't present when she was detailing their house. But without any evidence, blaming her wasn't appropriate. Also, he found out on social media that she had serious debts to the tune of thousands of dollars, ailments, divorce, court settlements, etc. So he decided to install security cameras, and he didn't tell the maid. Fast forward 5 weeks, and he had enough evidence to press charges on her as the things she stole were valued at over $250. He became furious when his flash disk containing private documents as well as some of his billing and his official work documents was stolen. But he wanted her to get even more into the stealing so he could squeeze every last cent out of her. So he came up with a plan. He told the maid that he and his girlfriend would be gone for a week for a honeymoon and that he'll be going by a taxi so as to not pay extra money airports charge for the parking. That means his brand new Chevy Camaro will stay parked in the house and the maid has the keys to them. They rented an apartment through Airbnb just a few blocks away from his place, and he placed a GPS tracking keychain in his car so he could see where his car is through the phone app. He then placed the car keys in a visible spot in the house so the maid would notice. All that was left was to wait for the magic to happen. And his intuition was right. After 2 days of almost constantly watching the GPS tracker's location, the car left the garage. All of a sudden, the car was cruising at 90 miles per hour on the highway. My friend immediately called the cops. They caught the maid something like 20 miles away. And now the revenge. He decided to press charges on the maid. At court, the maid told the judge that my friend told her to drive the car to some undisclosed location. She acted like she forgot where it was. And the one that should go to jail is him because he wrongly accused her and he just wants to get money from her to pay his loans. But the tables turned. My friend and his lawyer showed the court all the video evidence of her stealing his stuff valued well above $250. It was like $40,000 including the car, so this was a crime. She started swearing and telling every single lie she could think of. The security had to calm her down. She was facing 5 years in jail and she was charged $5,000, including all the stolen property except for the car, his lawyer, and some other court stuff. The price excluded the car because it was returned almost immediately. A few days later, the police did a house check on her and most of the stolen stuff was there. There were also some other things reported missing from some of her other customers. Due to her previous debts and the new ones she owes, she will very likely become homeless when she gets out of jail. Hope you enjoy it, bitch. Maid, you weren't paying attention. They hired you to clean the house, not clean house. Our next Reddit post is from Deleted. A couple things about me that made it really suck to have a food thief. I have a lot of food allergies, so I can't just get lunch at the cafeteria or at a nearby restaurant. I have a new baby who I'm breastfeeding and who I pump for when I'm at work. You know how hungry pregnant people are? Yeah, the caloric requirement for breastfeeding is 100 to 200 calories higher than pregnancy. I'm always hungry. Because I have a new baby, half the time, I don't manage to show up at work with a lunch. I either run out of time to pack one, or if I did remember, I leave it on the counter. My solution to all of this was to leave lots of non-perishable snacks in my office. And also a lot of candy because I also have a 3-year-old, and therefore work is the only place I can shovel Skittles into my mouth without a little hand extending into my field of vision and a little voice saying, "Please." Snacks that were specifically free of my allergens, some of which were specialty foods because of this. The type of specialty food that just doesn't taste as good as food that contains the allergen and also costs twice as much. Because I'm not getting a lot of sleep right now. I deserve nice things. So, because I'm not getting a lot of sleep right now, when I first came back from maternity leave, assembled my snack hoard, and started having things go missing, I genuinely thought I was just losing my mind. Boxes of candy were running out faster than I thought I was eating them. I'd come in the mornings and things wouldn't be where I'd left them. At one point, I brought a bag of chips to work, folded the rim of the bag down so I wasn't plunging my arm elbow deep into a grease pit, and then put a bag clip on it when I went home. And when I came in the next morning, the bag was unrolled and re-clipped. I went, wow, I must be more tired than I thought. Rolled the bag back down, and the next morning, it was unrolled again. Just little things like that, almost every day, that made me go, wow, the post-baby brain is worse than I thought. And then I got the flu. I got the flu and I was out for a whole week. Left behind at the office was an almost full box of Enjoy Life cookies, which are not enjoyable but are free of all major allergens, and are also $5 a box for like 12 sad little sand pies with some cinnamon on top. I ate one row of those cookies, and then I was out of the office for a week. For 1 week, I was not eating any of my snack hoard, but someone else was. Because I came back to work, opened my box of cookies, and found one. There was one single solitary cookie left. And on further examination, the one box of candy that had been opened was nowhere to be found. And on top of that, the thief had done me the courtesy of opening a new box for me. Except that they actually followed the push here to open instructions instead of just ripping one end of the box open like I do. Which they should dang well know at this point, because by this time, they'd been stealing from me for 2 goddamn months. The combination of these two things, the sheer freaking audacity it takes to open a new box so you can continue stealing from someone, on top of the consumption of almost a whole box of specialty cookies that aren't even good, enraged me enough that, after going to my boss and getting some vague promises about checking if the security cameras in my wing of the building are functional or not, what? I went straight to Amazon and ordered myself a nanny cam. Not for my baby. For my snack hoard. Conveniently, it arrived the day before Valentine's Day. I set it up on top of the file cabinet looking down at my desk. On the desk, I laid out a fantastic spread of snacks. I got all my thief's favorites, and then I took it one step further. I bought myself a Valentine heart, broke the seal to make it more inviting, and left it out on my desk. The next morning, I came into some very obvious snack carnage. My thief had slowly been getting more brazen. Again, who opens a new box of something and opens it differently than the person they're stealing from? But this was just on another level. Individually wrapped things had been dumped out of their boxes. Bits of packaging had been thrown away. And yup, they'd eaten some of the Valentine candy. For shame, office thief. Don't you know that's from someone who loves me? I played back the video. All was quiet through most of the evening, and I was just watching the shadows lengthen as the sun slowly set through the hallway window. And then, shortly before midnight, the night janitor arrived and went right ahead and took a 12-minute break in my office, sitting in my chair eating my food. I started taking screenshots. I got him shoveling candy into his mouth with full palm to lips intensity, pouring things out onto the desk to pick his favorite flavors. Not even bothering to put them back where he found them. And yes, eating my god dang Valentine's candy. Screenshots went directly to my boss in an email. I went directly to my boss's door to hover and grin and ask if he'd read my email. And I got assurances of a strongly worded email to the cleaning company and the barring of this particular employee from our place of business. I was also tactfully asked to please take my unauthorized spy camera home, which I did. I thought this was over until the girl who works the concession stand dropped by to thank me. Apparently, the food thief would start his shift just as she was closing down for the night and would try to get free coffee in that creepy guy way. And then one of the reception staff came by with the same sentiments. I'd never met the guy face to face, but apparently, as a woman, it was not a fun experience to have. I'd shown my screenshots to a few coworkers. Who's eating OP's food had become an office gossip by this point, and word had spread fast. I worked an earlier shift, so I didn't recognize him, but people whose shifts overlapped with his did. I hadn't told my husband about what I'd done. When I came home raging about the blatant theft that had gone on while I'd had the flu, his only response had been, "You really shouldn't be leaving food at work then." But when I came home with a nanny cam and explained where and why I'd gotten it, his reaction surprised me. "You know, I think this is the first time I've seen you stand up for yourself. I'm proud of you." You know what, Reddit? I'm proud of me too. OP, if you want to kick your revenge up to the next level, you could always send me the videos, because I would happily publish your videos of that snack thief caught red-handed. Our next Reddit post is from Scott3496. I live with my girlfriend, Karen, and my old grade school friend Jake, who was working as a sales rep. We live on the outskirts of a well-known city in the States. I was in my late 20s, and I found myself looking for work as a bar I was working at closed down. Knowing I was desperate for work, Jake calls me and tells me his new girlfriend Jill just purchased a motel/bar with a small kitchen, and she's after hired help. Needless to say, I jump at the opportunity as Karen wasn't working. Not surprised. The bills were piling up, and our healthcare insurance was due. I called Jill, arranged to meet her at the new property to introduce myself. Jake made the introductions in person and had already told Jill I was a hands-on DIY person with hospitality experience. Now, to explain, my dad is a Sparky and believes if you can pay someone to fix something, you could probably do it cheaper yourself. He taught me lots and still does to this day. After a 30-minute chat, Jill tested me with a few odd jobs like rewiring an outlet, fixing a clogged sink, and quizzed me on liquor laws. Needless to say, I was hired that day. Originally, work was all about getting the property ready for business. Jill thought it would have been minor work, paint, replacement of fixing and furniture, etc. We soon found out the electrical wires were shot. The whole place needed rewiring, which was a cause of stress for Jill as it would have blown her budget. Luckily for Jill, my dad was between contracts and offered his services using leftover stock, already paid for from other jobs. Jill would just need to cover the cost of any new products required. As for labor, his payment, he said he enjoys a steak and beer on Friday nights. After 3 weeks of my dad helping, the wiring was done, was up to code, and at a fraction of the cost. Jill and I spent 1 to 2 months painting all 15 motel rooms, bistro, and bar, cleaning the kitchen, cool rooms, etc. Jake would offer to help, but always left after 20 minutes saying he has to make a sale. Jill often worked well into the night. After all, this was her dream. I'd take some furniture home to restore after hours and return it once restored. Business opened up after 6 months, and thanks to Dad, opened under budget. Jill managed the business and ran the kitchen, and I worked where I was needed. In the kitchen, on the bar, tending to maintenance. I was on salary, second in charge, and could work in any position. Things went smoothly for a year. Business was turning a profit. Dad was getting his weekly beer and steak. Karen seemed happy, and Jake was still working as a sales rep for a pharmaceutical company. One day, I felt rough at work, so I clocked off and went home early. Pulling into my driveway, with the exception of a turning gut, things felt normal. Jake's car was there, but he lived there, so I didn't think anything was wrong. As usual, I parked behind Jake, important for later. When I opened the door, I found Karen doing the reverse cowgirl with Jake on the couch. After seeing this, Jake grabbed his pants and ran out through the back door. Karen and I argued into the night, she blaming me saying I'm never home. I'm spending too much time with Jill. We were keeping things professional. I was her employee. I went to bed and told her she can sleep in Jake's bed as she clearly finds it more comfortable. I called Jill and informed her of this as Jake was her boyfriend. She was upset as he cheated on her, but admitted she suspected he was seeing someone else. Jill offered me a room at the motel until I figured out my next move. The next day, I loaded my personal effects in the truck. Jake's car was still there, as I had blocked it in. I told Karen she can keep the rental and the furniture. I told Karen I'd be back for my tools in a few hours, and I would appreciate it if she wasn't there. I went home that afternoon to load my tools into my truck. While I was grabbing something from under my workbench, I found a bag I wasn't familiar with. Upon closer inspection, I found a large quantity of little tablets. The way they were packaged and hidden made me realize they were probably ecstasy. A thorough search of the house led me to finding 2 more bags and about $12,000 in cash. I put 2 and 2 together and realized that Jake's pharmaceutical sales job was code for drug dealer, and Jake probably traded pills to Karen for passionate hugging. I was beyond angry until I realized I have all I need to get him back. The revenge. Jake's car still hadn't moved. I went inside and grabbed his spare keys and chucked on a pair of gloves that were in the garage. I put half the money in 1 bag of drugs in his boot and thought, hang on, this won't pass. I removed his spare tire from the wheel well and put the bag in there. The other 2 bags, I threw them down the storm drain in the laneway behind my house. As for the $6K in cash, Jake did cost me a house full of furniture, just saying. I sent a message to both Jake and Karen with a typical hurt script. I can't believe you did this. We were friends, blah blah blah. I've left. I hope you 2 are happy together. I then made an anonymous tip to the local police and ATF about a man fitting Jake's description, loading what looks like drugs into the boot of a car that looked like Jake's car, and provided a partial plate number that matched Jake's car. It didn't take long for law enforcement to find the car and locate the drugs. What I wasn't counting on is Karen was driving the car at the time. She was later released when they found out she was driving the wrong car at the wrong time. A warrant went out for Jake's arrest. The icing on the cake, I found out later that not only was the police after Jake, his supplier was as well, as he lost a lot of product. Fast forward 3 months, I purchased a house and I was still working with Jill. Karen was pregnant with Jake's baby and he was on the run. I suspected that she was keeping contact with Jake because she suddenly left the district when she was 8 months pregnant. 12 months after the incident, after a drunken night, Jill and I mixed business with pleasure and started dating. That was 10 years ago. We're married, have 2 children, and just opened our 3rd business. Dad still gets his weekly steak and beer. I did hear a rumor that Jake and Karen wound up in Alaska, but I can't confirm this. I do feel a little bad about it now because Jake made it possible for me to date Jill and live a wonderful life. I do hope he's well. That was r/Prorevenge, and if you like this video then hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.